Hello, I'm Sean Richards of Not a Yes Man's Economics, and I want to talk today about the issue of inflation. And this matters a lot. Why? Well, because if things are more expensive, you're getting poorer. So there's a relationship here. For example, between wages and prices, that's one. But it also pops up in quite a few other spheres. For example, do you know how much an economy's grown? You need to allow for how much prices have changed. So there's an issue here, except that once we start looking at this, there's quite a few problems with it. Let me start with a basic part, which is that central banks say that an ideal level for the economy, what they call the inflation target, is prices rising by 2% a year. Now there's various catches with that. Let's start with the first, which is they call it price stability. Well, it's not, is it? Because that would be 0% a year. And they're starting to take that even further, actually, as we're seeing arguments for 3% a year, 4% and 5%, and so on. But, again, to return to the original point, well, people are worse off when prices are higher, unless they find some way to compensate for that. Now, there's a secondary issue that undercuts all of this, which is, you might think, because people are saying they want a higher inflation target, they've got some plan to get there. But let me give you an example that's come up from this morning, and it's the issue of Switzerland. If we look at Switzerland, you see, there's essentially no inflation. If you're being kind of generous, you can say very little, whichever way you want to put that. But over the last year, it's been about 0.4%. Depending which measure you take, there either wasn't any in December, or it fell by 0.1%. You get the idea. If we look back for a broad sweep, we see that the actual index is at 101.7, and it was rebased at 100 in 2015. So in a bit under 5 years, there's not even been 2%. If we use the euro area measure, then it's only 101.2%, even less, only a little bit over 1% now, over nearly 5 years. Why am I emphasising that? Well, you see, Switzerland has made quite an effort to get some inflation. For example, it has a negative interest rate of -0.75%. In a week's time, that will have been around for 5 years as well. So now we have two factors coming in. We have central banks saying they want something, but actually their mechanism for getting it doesn't seem to have got us there. If we look at now the euro area, we see similar problems. Now there's been more inflation there. This morning we were told that there was 1.3% over the past year. But then they've gone through an enormous amount of effort to get something that's still below target. They too have a negative interest rate. They've kept building that up. It's now -0.5%. We've seen all sorts of negative bond yields, bond buying, all sorts of efforts to get inflation up. But that hasn't really worked. In fact, here's an area where, to my mind, this all goes wrong. If you're buying food in the euro area at the minute, that's ideal for a central banker because it's going up at 2% per year. In fact, it's the highest category rising. But for the ordinary person, this poses a real problem because something that's vital, you need food to eat, you're then having to pay more for, so you're worse off. And this is the problem with the way that this is calculated. If we go forward, there's another area that exhibits this, which is simply housing costs. Things that people understand, house prices, are left out. Why? Because they're rising at a faster rate. 4.3% last time I checked for the euro area. And this, to summarise, is the swerve. They want to tell you you're better off, but actually make you worse off. Why? Well, it deflates the debt burden. Now that's the problem. Thank you.